So welcome to another interview from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and we're here at BPA's World Board Gaming Championships 2018. I've sat down with the illustrious Sal, designer of one of my favorite games, Unconditional Surrender. Yep, if you've watched anything that I've done, I love that game. And surprise to me, I actually didn't know anything about this, and I just saw it when it was pulled out on the table. This is a kind of prototype working copy of a game called Armistice, which is the Unconditional Surrender style game system, but it's World War I. And immediately what you might see is this is a single map.
Yes.
And that was something that stood out to me. I was like, oh, it's Unconditional Surrender. And then it was one map, and I was like, wait, no, it's not. So I had to double take. So I wanted just to have you kind of run us through what we can kind of expect from this game so far. I know it's kind of early days. What's kind of different from this? What makes this World War I?
So what you'll have, besides your standard border changes, is I'll introduce manpower losses to give the game an attritional feel. I'll also add trench counters to give it that World War I look. And it's going to be a challenge because there's obviously a lot less maneuver, especially on the Western Front. You're fighting over just a few hexes as opposed to sweeping across France. And one of the things that I'm going to attempt to do through manpower and trenches is reflect how trenches can absorb losses. And you reduce trenches, and that reflects you taking the first line of defenses as far as trenches are concerned. And so you can, manpower and manpower losses will affect overall your national will. You will also, after a certain number of losses, each country might start suffering negative effects such as lost will or reduced production. It might be as bad as getting mutinies or industrial strikes. That's what I'm going to attempt to do.
Okay. So
some of this is a bit early in the design, and
yes.
So
I know you said that this is like at least a year out.
Yes,
probably more. But I think there's some kind of prototype once again, some like counter sheets here. I'm going to show you. Here's kind of the trench counters, which we're going to end up looking like. So what I presume is you'll get trench lines going through Western Europe.
Right. Right now, my concept is there'll be level 1 trenches and level 2 trenches. Level 1 trenches you can build in any hex, but to build to a level 2 hex, you have to have level 1 trenches next to it. And so that will be easier to do on the West Front, where you can have a line of units from Switzerland all the way to the North Sea. But in the East, which is much more terrain, much larger, and has less density of units, it will be hard to achieve anything that's level 2.
That's something that I noticed. Your son was very diligently cutting out the counters.
Yes, quite.
The unit composition was was very different, and the Germans have a ton of forces like they would, but the French had so many more than they do at Unconditional. I was like, oh, there's so many French units, and just the smaller nations of different distributions. I thought was neat.
Yeah, interestingly enough, there are less Germans and less French.
Really?
Yes.
It looked like there was a lot more.
I'd have to do a count. But actually, one of the things that's a challenge here is that in World War I, the unit density was greater per mile or kilometer. And at this point, I'm not sure that I will achieve a one army per unit representation, especially in the West, because at the end of World War I, there were 5 British armies on the Western Front, and add 10 French armies. If I keep my Unconditional Surrender 1 army per hex stacking, I can't put them all on the West Front. So I think what will more than likely happen is I will combine several historical armies into one counter, similar to what I did with the Russians in World War II. Alternatively, I might change the stacking rules But that is highly unlikely, because if I go down that road, then in the end I'll be designing a different game, and that's not the intent. The intent is anyone who's familiar with unconditional surrender should be able to pick up the rule book and immediately recognize mechanics and keep certain things the same, stacking, etc.
Now, obviously the political landscape is different enough, very different from World War II. Is there a similar type of that kind of political influence system with different countries?
Yes, there's something similar. However, because you're dealing with less countries, and because Austria-Hungary is one large country, and what I plan to do at the moment is you will have a diplomacy phase where you will pick random chits to have a political success or a failure or no event. What will end up happening is, rather than in unconditional surrender where you select a country that you might share a land border with and then influence that, all the countries will go in a separate cup, and you'll randomly pull to see which country you influence. And that's where your influence marker will go. And then if you get another political success, like an unconditional surrender, you can either remove an enemy one, activate a country that's friendly to you, or if you choose, you can just try to pick another country.
So, the other thing I wanted to ask about is World War I is, there's some pretty, there's some defining moments from that war that kind of changed or altered the course of the war. Things like the delay of the Schlieffen Plan through Belgium, or the colossal failure at Gallipoli, things like that. Are there going to be kind of events or things to kind of take care of those, or is that up to the players to kind of make that stuff happen?
Something at that level, like the Schlieffen Plan, that will be up to players to decide, because to attempt to do that. The success will be, based on die rolls and how your defenses are set up. I don't have specific events such as that built in. I do have Chrome in the terms of tank markers, gas markers, Strohstruppen, and tactics, and those will be events that aren't necessarily tied to an historical time frame. They might end up being something that you draw. So there might be, Diplomacy Cup might change into more of a diplomacy and then research or major events.
I don't know,
marker.
In a game on this scale, would you have things like kind of gas attacks, things like that?
Yes, gas. The way I handle events like that in unconditional surrender, I'll do that here. Gas attacks, if we look at a gas marker,
okay. They have a little gas marker right here for the Germans.
So on the back side of the gas marker, you will see in the ground attack, the defender is a -1.
That's cool.
And gas will have a die roll to determine how many turns it takes to get back, because gas's effect were mainly greatest effect occurred when a new gas was introduced, and so it's not something that you will get back all the time. Another thing that's different here is the time scale has changed. I go from 12 turns or monthly turns to 5 turns for the year.
Was there a decision behind that?
Yes. The reality is that there's a lot less movement in World War I.
Okay.
And so it didn't make much sense to have people constantly attacking for little gain.
Is there a way that something like the Russian Civil War is handled with the revolution there that kind of might pull them out of the war towards the end?
There will be a Russian Revolution possibility, and some of that might come from manpower. So after a certain point, you might have to start rolling on a revolution table to simulate that. I do have a Brest-Litovsk Treaty marker somewhere scattered in there. Whether I simulate anything beyond just the collapse, I'm not sure yet. That has to still get hammered out.
Well, I appreciate you sitting down with us. I know this is early days for you. I know there's a lot more work ahead, but I know, myself included, there's a lot of people out there that are very excited for new unconditional surrender style titles.
Thank you.
So I appreciate you sitting down with us.
I do have one thing I want to point out. I have the Christmas truce marker, and so when that event occurs, should it occur, I will likely have some kind of very low odds chance that the Christmas truce will cause the end of the game. I don't know, something like rolling 4 ones in a row. And if you do not know about the Christmas truce of World War I strongly recommend that you research it. It's a fascinating story.
Yes. Again, appreciate you doing this. This is a long ways out, so.
Yeah, yes. But it might. I'm hoping maybe P500 before the end of the year.
And then how long after that before we might actually have
it? Then we'll see how many playtesters I get.
Okay, sign me up.
Okay.
But yeah, this is a ways out. We just want to get the hype train rolling already. No pressure.
No problem.
But this is a very exciting thing for me. I had no idea this was here, so I just wanted to share that with you guys. So appreciate you doing this for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been fun.